Well, this is a piece from the Majority Report talking about the current. It's a caller who called in with some opinions on the current not housing situation, but real estate situation. As you know, following the pandemic, the big one, there's been a strong desire for folks not to return to the office. Understandably, a lot of us discovered, oh, hey, I can do my job from home. Why am I out there dealing with office drama? It's a great question. It turns out a lot of the reason why is because people have invested heavily in those offices. So here is a Majority Report caller talking about what's likely to happen with the real estate market in our very near future. I think there's an opportunity here.
These office buildings, it's one thing to carry this their phone, and I'm Kelly just office space is going to be so valuable. Decking that, you know what, this phone sucks. I got to return it. I could get an $800 phone.
We're absolutely gonna do Sam's tortured analogy. It works for me. All right, here we go.
But actually, this phone, the battery's not working. And GFC, so people know the great financial crisis of 2008.
Correct. Morgan, you know the names, and they're holding them at much higher values than what they would sell for on the market today.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Unrealistically valued assets being held on these books at these big investment companies, and I'm talking about, BlackRock, J.P. Morgan, you know the names, and they're.
So he's just talking about why. Just to fill you in so we don't have to keep searching for it. He's just talking about why all these companies are really, really trying to get people to stay in the office. And it's because they own valuable office real estate.
Holding them.
And they need to maintain those values for the companies to maintain their values.
Much higher values than what they would sell for on the market today.
Okay. All right. So let me just make sure that I follow you up to here and catch other people up. And I should just say, when you see GFC, so people know the great financial crisis of 2008.
Correct.
But so basically, it's like this. Like I bought a phone, an expensive iPhone, and it's worth $800 when I buy it, and but this is a great phone, and it's the big thing about it. It doesn't lose its value, but actually, this phone, the battery's not working, and I get bad reception. But I'm pretending it's still worth $800 because I want to be a guy who carries around an $800 phone, I could get a tax benefit if I said, you know what, this phone sucks. I got to return it. But I don't want to do that because I want to make it look like I'm carrying around an $800 phone. In this instance, it's really just about the value on the books, but the clock is ticking, right? Because I have debt on this that I pay that's going to jump through the roof. And my cash flow calculations were all based upon, I'm going to be able to get out of this before that happens. Right. Or that, office space is going to be so valuable. I guess the phone wasn't a great analogy, but that's the deal.
I mean, it's basically the same thing. I mean, the main thing to point out here is that office has been seen, as long as I've been in the industry, for as long as, I've been reading about it, has always been seen as like the most sure thing, that you're most likely to get a return on your investment because, everybody loves their office. Everybody wants to pay that money. Rents are through the roof. So that's part of the hubris here, is that from my perspective, there was a flood to capital to an asset that even, back in 2015, I was saying, this is this is a short-lived period that we're in because of the fact that I'm a millennial. I and my generation prefer working from home, and that's just the reality of the situation. And so,
yeah, and most people, when given the option, prefer not to deal with the office nonsense. Let me jump in to say the folks that will be immune from that, what he was just talking about, that crash, that sudden crash in the value of their property, those will be the folks who weren't bullshitting when they said their employees needed to come into the office. Those will be the people whose offices did something worth a damn. In other words, there is a lathe there, an industrial lathe at the office that is necessary for getting the job done. Or there's sensitive information which literally cannot be hosted online because of the nature of the yada, yada, yada. The point being, those folks, we're essentially seeing, a building version of what the whole world is realizing with people. A whole lot of the bosses don't really do anything, as we learned during the pandemic. A whole lot of the buildings we were using and insisting people burn gas money and literally burn gasoline to get to and from every day don't actually do anything. You've already got an internet connection at home. There's no need to power the office, keep the lights on, keep the air conditioning, or if somebody's got to be there, we don't have to do quite so much of all that. How many million tons of carbon have we burned just to keep the real estate value of people's companies high? How much of our lives have we spent driving to and from work in those awful traffic jams just because somebody wanted to, really personally be able to make their employees' lives worse, oversee that process themselves? Too much. And the folks that weren't lying about it when they said that we need people in the office, they'll be fine. Yes, I know. It's an interconnected world, the world of the rich. But mostly, even if they gotta tighten the belt, which for them means owning 4 Ferraris instead of 17. Even if they got to do that a little bit, they'll make it just fine.
it doesn't take some complex rubric to come to the conclusion that offices' days, as they were in the teens, were numbered. And you know.
So what happens? BlackRock, J.P. Morgan, all of these investment places, they have a lot of investment in these office buildings. It's one thing to carry this debt load at, X, but it's another thing to carry this debt load at 5X or 6X.
Right.
So what happens? And we know it, do we know, is there a date? Like there was a couple of dates in the financial crisis where it's like,
yeah, I remember that.
In Q3, I can't remember the specifics, but Q3, a bunch of these adjustable rate mortgages are going to pop up. Like, is there a date like that, or is it going to just start becoming like a rolling phenomena? And what constitutes a soft landing, or is there a potential for a soft landing of that?
So I think to answer the second part of your question first, the soft landing is going to be governmental intervention. It's going to be some bailout in the form of, be it massive tax breaks for owning office buildings or some incentivization to convert office buildings to multifamily. I mean, there are a lot of different avenues that we could go down. I don't think that we get there without government intervention. So then the first
I'm getting to do a Majority Report dream. Pause it. Oh, delightful. Right there, what he's saying, the caller, I totally agree with. I don't believe that, number one, these folks who invested so much in office real estate are going to be able to get out of it without government help. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I think the government ought to help people, especially during a time like this. Look, even if you don't like any of the people who made these decisions, neither do I. But this was an unforeseen change in the way things work. This is essentially why we have government. I'm fine with them yet again helping out the rich in this case. But the government used to do things and then just tell us that's how it is. Now it works a little bit different. Now we are using it more often the way it's supposed to be used, which is to say we are insisting things get done certain ways. We need to be proactive about this. We should get in touch with our representatives now, immediately, and tell them that we will not vote for anybody again if they give a bailout without conditions. No more bailouts without conditions. So how about this? If the government bails them out, buys up, let's say, the office, no, gives them money to deal with the fact that their office space has lost value. We, the people, need to get something in exchange for that. The thing we should get, what I suggest we demand, is that some of that office space, which the government is going to buy up, if somebody finds that they're just going out of business, some of that office space be converted into low or no income housing. First of all, it does help you solve a foot traffic problem in areas where there used to be lots of employees. Now, it's true, we don't have people as gainfully employed necessarily. I mean, definitionally, we won't have people who are as gainfully employed there, but it's not like when you're poor, that means you are absolutely destitute. Sometimes you got spending money. And let's not think about this the way conservatives do. Just because somebody's situation isn't dealt with doesn't mean they stop existing. And if that person who is poor, who wouldn't be as desirable for the local businesses, a replacement for the office workers that are no longer there, it's better than nothing. And the alternative is we pretend like they're not going to go live under a freaking bridge. You know? No way to deal with it. Let him finish up.
Part of the question. I don't know how familiar you are with the savings and loan crisis of the late 80s.
Yeah.
That it specifically hit Texas. So, going up through business school and everything, you get it beaten over your head as sort of like a historical lesson and what can be gleaned from it. Back then, banks took ownership of massive real estate holdings and went through what were called workouts, which is essentially you get in with your the people who lease your building. You get in with even previous owners if they're amenable to the structure, and you work out a new payment that you can get. The bank can get the maximum money on their loan, and the other party in the transaction has the ability to just survive.
It's basically like a bankruptcy negotiation.
It's comparable to that. Yeah. And you had a bunch of funky shit happening in the 80s where there was one really wealthy oil and gas guy who listed his the office building that he owned as his primary residence, so that the taxman couldn't come take it from him, using Texas's homestead laws to kind of protect him. So I think there will be some portion of funky shit that happens there, but as a result of both the S&L crisis of the 80s and then what happened in 08, 09, banks hate owning real estate assets. They don't want to own a distressed asset because they're not in the business of managing those assets.
Right. They don't know how to sell it. They don't know how to fix it. They don't want to upkeep it. That's when the grass on the lawn starts,
etc. Yeah, let's talk about this on the other side. So, as Sam Cedar says, banks don't want to own, good Lord, banks don't want to own these things. Let's let real estate companies own them. Let's let the government own them. Let's bail these companies out, these big companies that said they needed all this office space when really they just wanted a place to put their money. They wanted an untaxable place to put their money, so they didn't have to pay for the roads that now have potholes in them that damage your vehicle. So they didn't have to pay for the social services that would have kept people from going into poverty in the first place. That's what they wanted. That's why they wanted those office spaces. Well, now that they're going to need a bailout yet again because we have let capitalists eat themselves, now that once again they're going to need a bailout, my suggestion in 2023, well ahead of this catastrophe coming to pass, my suggestion is that we contact our representatives. I know it's Salty Saturday. I'm not supposed to be doing a what you can do, but what the hell? Let's get in early. We contact our representatives and tell them this bailout, this coming bailout, ain't gonna be a gift. How about this? It's a wild idea that these folks will have to contend with. We'll give them a loan. We'll simply be requiring them to do something of use for society for once in their miserable existences, in exchange for getting to go on living their miserable existences. Give it some thought. I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. And also to know if the new camera setup is making you nauseous. We'll see.